Hello, good evening. Thank you very much for coming to Instituto Cervantes. My name is Jorge, and I am the cultural coordinator of the center. It is an honor to welcome these writers and Wasafiri to Instituto Cervantes. So thank you to Sana Goyal, the editor and publishing director, Wakima Sinha, deputy director, and Cassie Lawrence, digital coordinator at Wasafiri, who will be selling magazines later upstairs, for inviting us to host this event. For those who don't know what Wasafiri is the UK's leading magazine for international contemporary writing, launched in 1984, and it is now renowned for publishing some of the world's most distinguished writers, including Nadine Gordimer, Gillian Solvo, Ben Okri, amongst many, many, many others. Um, so thank you again for inviting us to host this, which is not a launch because you have a soft launch, but we can call this as a hard launch. Um, Thank you to Leo Boix, who will be leading this reading and conversation. Um, Leo's bio grows every single time I have to read it, which is fantastic. So, Leo is a bilingual Latinx poet, born in Argentina and based in London. His second collection, Southernmost Sonnets, published in 2025, and it was launched here actually last summer, was shortlisted for the Forward Prizes and named Book of the Year by The Guardian and The Week. His debut English collection, Ballad of a Happy Immigrant, published in 2021, was a Poetry Book Society wildcard choice. Boix is editor and lead translator of Hemisferio Queer, introducing English readers to major Latin American voices. Today we are going to be joined by Patrizia Longhitano, José Buera and Luisa de la Concha Montes, who will be introduced by Leo shortly. I will finish now, but I need to do some promo for our next events. So on the 9th of April, after Easter, the whole center will be transformed into a theater. We'll be hosting a micro theater session. So we'll have a play here, some plays in classrooms and the library. This event is organized in collaboration with Untold Collective, so you're more than welcome to join us. But if you are into cinema, the weekend from the 16th to the 19th of April, we will be supporting the London Spanish Film Festival with the Spring Weekend. We left some information over there, so you're welcome to have a look. And then on the 23rd of April for International Book Day, or San George, we will be hosting an entire day of events here. So in the library, we'll have books available for everyone who pop up and grab a book and a rose for free. And then here in the evening, we will host a lecture titled Between Walls and Verses, Lorca al Machado, given by Jordi Gomez Vilena. So you're more than welcome to join us. Thank you, and I leave them now to talk.
Thank you, Jose, and thank you everyone for being here. I'm really excited to be here launching Wasafiri and showcasing these amazing poets here. Some of them were included in the magazine. So for me, it's really special because this is a celebration of a wonderful project that I've been involved for actually many years, 3 years. It took a long time. It's quite a large magazine, and with the co-editor Karina Likrishkin, we worked really hard, commissioning pieces, prose pieces, interviews, art pieces, poetry, essays. So it's quite a large magazine. It's a really historic one because it's the first one solely dedicated to British Latinx writers and artists, so of Latin American heritage. And it's been really wonderful working with all these writers, editing the pieces, commissioning, and selecting. So for the poetry, I was one of the selectors, and we received many submissions, and it was wonderful to select them. And Jose and Patrizia here were included in the magazine. There were many wonderful poets that we couldn't include, but it was really fantastic project actually. I will read later a translation by Raúl Cisneros, a Quechua poet from Peru. We did a translation with a British translator, Constantina Higby, and I will read the poem later. But I just wanted to say just a few things about British Latinx poetry in general, how it's growing and it's evolving, and it's sort of reshaping the landscape of UK poetry through, for instance, multilingual writing, hybrid identities, and diasporic experiences. These are some of the themes that we included in the magazine. So it's been really wonderful. It's important for us, and with Karina, we talked a lot about the importance of showcasing all these voices, especially at a time when the Latino community in the States and many other countries are being discriminated against, being targeted, especially in the US. So it feels actually quite important, quite urgent to showcase these voices. For us, poetry in this case is a way to assert, presence and a refusal of erasure, and also a way to hold complexity, dignity, and memory. You will hear, some of the poets from the magazine today, and you will see. So we went with the title Presencia y Resistencia for obvious reasons, but Presencia very much a way of, showcasing and show these wonderful writers, these really talented artists, and Resistencia because there is an act of resistance in publishing them. We feel so. Presence itself can be an act of resistance. So I want to thank the poets here, but also all the writers who were part of Wasafiri. I want to thank Jorge Gares for being so wonderful and just immediately saying yes to the idea of launching Wasafiri here. It really means a lot. Also to Karina Licorice Kin, she's not here sadly, but she's a wonderful writer, a Latinx writer, and a wonderful editor. It's been really wonderful working with her, and of course the whole Wasafiri team. So without further ado, we will start with the poetry reading. The idea is each of you will read, and then we will have a Q&A at the end, so we can talk a little bit more about the magazine and their poetry. So we're going to start with José Buera. He's a Caribbean Latinx writer from the Dominican Republic. His work is rooted in community, voice, and lived experience. His poetry appears in a range of important literary magazines, including Poetry Ireland very soon. He's also the founder of the Empanada Poetry Salon, a space where poetry meets food, gathering, and conversation. And his work reminds us that poetry is not only written, it is shared, spoken, and collective.
Thank you, Leo. Hi, so as Leo said, I'm from the Dominican Republic, and when I was growing up, it's a very Catholic country, and every time you did a trip or did anything really, you had a prayer. So I will start this reading with a prayer. Ave Maria. Before we start the journey, let's have a prayer. Dios te salve Maria, to bless the beach picnic, to shield a red Volvo when he drives into a burro, el fruto de tu vientre, on the road to Guayacanes, to prevent a hard plastic shard sinking into mama's thigh, her femoral teeth with a sharp caricia, soft as Rocío Durcal sings, Ya te olvidé, when I fly above the stereo, unbroken seatbelt light, the windshield shreds my right arm into double rainbow, my collarbone smash like father's nose, blossoming on the steering wheel, patchouli aftershave masking his breath of café y ron, ruega por nosotros, before mamá ends, ahora y en la hora de nuestra muerte. Amen. The second poem is on the book. There's a lot of Taino words of the original inhabitants of the Dominican Republic. Most of them of the words are about birds. It's called De lo mío. De lo mío is, literal translation would be of our own, but it's
Dominican expression, particularly used when you bump into another Dominican abroad. You'll say de lo mío. So, de lo mío. It starts captive in black coconut fronds, high treasures of plata that we get to keep, but we're still poor, having traded the Milky Way for a sea of purple hues. Ghost crabs mingle in the confusion of a wrathed jaboa, deciding on a twilight snack before the waning moon rains, bringing out fishermen lights to scoop squid and cast off Coke bottles. Boats are sinking stars in the horizon, fireflies that surface in orange twinkles, prayers for a fast catch to return to their vieja and a bottle of Brugal. Day breaks shallows into emeralds that trap fish no one bothers to catch, save this early windshow that signals the zenith of winter and forces the sighing of a mockingbird. The bird prefers to sing safe under yesterday's rain, that this down washes the ocean brown with silt and fertility stolen upstream from campesinos vanishing faster than the pink and baby blue splatter of their countryside homes. Midday shimmers heat, quieting our Siwa who builds their nest in the crowns of royal palms, lined with Trinitaria thorns. Feathers scrape every time they go in to remember that to live here is to suffer, unnoticed by tourists, like this Canadian girl, a frangipani flower on her Santo Libre, and a Sankey Panky lover, his hand beyond the small of her back, whose name is thy son, at least this afternoon. Moribund Sargasso keeps tourists indoors. Its smell is the rotten egg next to a kua hatchling, who calls for a mother that will never come back. A lone kid flies a plastic bag chichiwa, close to the power lines, knowing that today there's a blackout, just like yesterday, which nevertheless won't silence the Colmado's PA, its generator running an ice chest full of presidentes. Una bien fría, a napkin, the beer's wedding dress, wraps it to keep hands dry under the wells of Romeo Santos' latest bachata. Maria gets up to dance with her neighbor Miguel, her main dervishes slow-mo, challenging gravity in the late afternoon, Afro secrets concealed in the rigors of hair cream burned earlier in Yarisa's salon. Maria's hands clutches Miguel's shoulder, his hip opening to turn swiftly, assisted by a drunk who demands lo mío, as the music silences an excuse that soon blues red in Miguel's mouth. A faint warmth, like water settled between the stilts of cut mangroves. A decayed palisade behind the kid who cast the tight guts of the chicken that Abuela stood for lunch. Now dusk, his steady hands crawl the rope to reel, a blue crab claw, attached to a carapace of greens, freckled by a constellation of round yellow stains. A paint-by-number centaurus, shrouding a lush future that refuses to be extinguished. This other poem is about an infamous, probably one of the most infamous Dominicans. He lived up to the 60s. He was most famous as a gigolo, married the two richest women in the world at the time, Barbara Hutton and Doris Duke, as well as a dictator, Trujillo's daughter, but he was also an assassin, diplomat, and polo player. He died in 1962, crashing his Ferrari in Bois de la Boulange after a night party. Yeah. Porfirio Rubirosa learns to love. Mama Ana waves, leaves a cardboard suitcase full of plantains. Buzz lips hum a lullaby. Danielle enters, a la garçon hair. She says nothing of his whip. I once had a bullet removed near my kidney. Thanks him, the last gentleman of Vichy, France. A Madame Claude girl matches the poise of a favorite mare when a dark peticero approaches, strokes her acquiescence. A la Pérouse, Doris Duke, unbridled and love seat, lets him daydream of the first time he loved free. The splendor of arroz con habichuelas, never lost. He wears her panties, to your spread my name. Doris Duke laughs. His erection fails to lift the table. He's still hard when she pays the bill. Babs Hutton is just another girl who this time really wants to be the one of the many that failed. Ruby examines her bank account with a doctor's poise. My name is a red rose. But Sasa doubts never avert his quick fist. A Dominican tigre awakes in the Côte d'Azur. Odile, engulfed by his perfumed hands, fingers release the last rung of a corset folded with the confidence of the sterile who takes his time to leave. She murmurs expectant, a pregnancy real as a cloister concealing a stolen foal. He kisses her neck, this sapling, her love child. And this last poem is sort of a concrete poem at the same time, an erasure. The figure in the center is the island of Quisqueya or Haiti, which is Spanish called Hispaniola. Ars Quisqueyana. I am Yucahu. I am the cassava boiled black, a lost recipe for casripo. I am a bubble in Mavi, dreaming to be Masato. I am Indio Claro. I am an E in my licencia. I am a liar about origins, perpetuated in history class. I am my skin's mirror image, inverted. I am cyan and magenta. I am a sentence without. I am Flor de Oro, about to be hanged. I am the criollos roping an acaona. I am a cacique. I am a presidente bien fría. I am the plastic seal of a bottle cap concealing a price. I am the flat teeth of a Taíno. I am the shovel-shaped incisor of a Carib. I am your bite mark. I am a quarter. I am half. I am silent on the rest. I am mestizo. I am the OG, AGT. I am Quisqueya. I am your border written in blood. I am a sancocho cortado. I am a moros sin víveres. I am a tabey. Her menses, your beginning. I am your bojique. I am cojoba up your nose. I am your eyes out of orbit. I am the cardboard suitcase of a Spanish migrant by Dosama. I am a jevito. I am Saltatras. I am Congo, written by La Sirene. I am Yemaya. I am a mispronounced Ave Maria in Yoruba. I am not your God. I am the kotu sharpened for the sacrifice. I am the guinea feathers on the beve. I am your hand against the bola. I am covered in blood. I am that ending. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jose. That is wonderful. Thank you. So next up is Patrizia Longhitano. Patrizia is a pansexual Latinx immigrant poet and visual artist based in London. Her work moves across poetry, performance, and multimedia installation. She explores identity, queerness, desire, and belonging. And she's the host of Venn Diagrams, a poetry series focused on intersection and exchange. Her work lives in the overlaps between disciplines, identities, and forms of expression. Welcome, Patricia.
Can you see me now? Can you see me now? I am the 10th daughter of a faceless and nameless woman who decided that 9 children were enough. Can you see me now? When I look at the fox in the garden trying to find the magpie who had bitten her tail, or when I'm a vine basket full of Bronte pistachio, Napolitan carobs, and green crushed olives because they are the fruit of drought. Can you see me now? I am the daughter of a Sicilian man and a woman from Veneto who would have never met if they stayed in Italy. Can you see me now? When I walk Nevens in Battersea Park, I try to name all the trees, but I can only recognize oaks, ginkgos, and pine trees. Can you see me now? I was wanted and chosen on my third day of life by a barren woman and a weak man who named me like a noble Roman woman. Can you see me now? When I eat La Dolce Vita and stracciatella ice cream from Badiani, while crossing the roundabout, while Yeslen murmurs, "This is not a shortcut." Can you see me now? I am the independent fern who, in order to have sex, will only need water and spores. Can you see me now? When I smile at those people who think they are so hilarious and so avant-garde when they tell me, Italian, ah sì, pizza, tutto buono. Oh, what do you think of Meloni? Berlusconi, eh? Bunga, bunga. Can you see me now? I am the daisy chains on Lauren and Busy's heads. Each of those stems made with a slit by a thumbnail, because love can also be about pain and atonement. Can you see me now? I am all the nettles I fell on when I was a child. My mother brushing it off. There. This shall pass too. I am. Birds. Can you see me now? Thank you. Sure. So that's just a project that I've been doing for a couple of years, and it's about me questioning myself as a queer immigrant female poet, creative person in this country, and how visible I am. So I'm aware that when I'm wearing this crown, this headpiece, you can't see me because I'm covering my face, but at the same time, you can definitely see me because I'm the weirdo wearing this headpiece. Yeah. So the next poem is going to be another question. And I start imagining what if everything had some kind of consciousness. And so I imagine a lichen falling in love with Catherine from Wuthering Heights. Catherine! 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 In the West Yorkshire moors, this lichen decided to survive. No matter how strong the wind would have been, no matter how much it would have rained, no matter how much the sun would have shined, they were going to thrive because they knew love. With all the podia that grew, with no roots, they still found a home on a rock. Near the waterfalls, when the wind would decide to go to the other side of Haywards, they would be able to hear the cascade, and sometimes they would swear even the fish and the algae breathe. But most of all, they would wait and wait for her. They would hear the wind grow stronger at first, making fun of the hybrid feeling, weren't even supposed to exist. They would be staunch and adamant, but still tender for her. Then they would hear the footsteps, her gloved fingers holding on to the Sunday hat, the dress fighting with those blasty currents, her giggles and her hymns, and her humming to some hymns. They would pray with her. They would pray with her God. But then the other fungi would whisper to them through the hyphae to stop with this nonsense, to be grateful their symbiotic relationships through photosynthesis and cyanobacteria. But how could they? How could they forget the smell of all those flowers that they would never be able to see but only to inhale from her décolleté? Until one spring, they heard it from her lips. They heard the honey dripping from her. His kiss. They couldn't deny anymore the defeat. They let the fungi caress them with the filaments and protect them with minerals and carbohydrates. When summer came, they kept quiet and quieter. So the fungi asked, "Do you want me to die with you?" They let the sun and the wind dry them up. During the drought, they refused the water from the heather who was covering the field next to them. They declined to make love to the algae and started to brittle until one spore at a time flew away from those hills and those lips. Thank you. So I was very lucky to be asked to be part of a project where we had to answer about the deforestation of the Amazonia. And it was me and other two female poets who were coming from the Brazilian diaspora. And we were commissioned to do this work together with an amazing artist called Alissa Martens. And so my part was about water. So I was able to rediscover all the Brazilian mythology. And my part was, as I said, the water. Lungs of the earth, water. They casted me away, blindfolded me, then took me to the other side of the great ocean river. They made me turn on myself for 17 times and 19 times more. One of them prophesied, "It won't be the last time I'll get lost." They make me lose my past when I'll be trying to grab my present. I will lose the count of the macaw feathers I gather, and then the scales of the anaconda will become patterns I won't be able to weave no more. When I'll memorize the ripples of the water, I'll become a woman once more, forgetting that I was once a fish. I'll discover there are mazes that need to be drawn, maps that want to be imagined, threads that need to be wrenched and stretched. When I'll unearth the secret of the strands of the rope that's in the twist, I'll finally recognize the cry of the piha bird. In its scream, I will learn again to call for my mothers and my sisters. Through the storm, I know them. Thunders won't scare me anymore, and I will wear raindrops and necklace pearls. Thank you. So the last poem is the poem from the magazine, and I just want to say thank you so much to Leo and Karina and the team of Wasafiri. It's really been amazing to be part of this. I'm so proud of it. I love the cover. I really want it as a poster in my bedroom. I really, really love it. Yeah, so thank you, everybody. Saint John the Baptist, visited in prison by Salome. While reading an article on Caravaggio and Guercino, I think of the poetry salon I've been to, where another guest with a very self-inflicted grammar school inflection tried to guess where I was from. Mexican, Peruvian. That accent, where is it from? When I flick through the pages, I see boy beaten by a lizard. That's when I remember the time I went out with a lad, a daddy biker, who told me, "After so many years in this country, you still have this strong accent." I later discovered he was coming from a protest in defense of Soldier S and his obsession with gladiators memorabilia. Hey, we all make mistakes. When I first arrived in London, I was ready for Bacchanalia, dancing at the Astoria until they kick us out, then having some chicken kebab with garlic sauce but no tomatoes, by the place at the corner of Tottenham Court Road station while trying to bring home some blonde theatre actress whose boyfriend was nowhere to be seen. I used to imagine enshrining all the men's heads I received, still dripping with crisp blood. My name, a saliva bubble, still pending from the lips. But little did I know that in the near future, my chiaroscuro would never make anybody gasp. My nanny life would only make people praise me like Guercino's inoffensive King David. Appreciated for the delicacies I cooked and baked. Tributed for the care and love I gave. Bravo for the wine I served but never drank. I always wanted to be a Salome, but my blunt destiny brought me only the legacy of a John. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patrizia. It's beautiful. Thank you. So next up, we have Luisa de la Concha Montes, a writer and photographer from Mexico City, now based in London. Her work sits between image and language. She explores grief, diaspora, memory, and identity, transforming abstract emotional states into something visible and tangible. Her work has been shown at the National Poetry Library and widely published. She creates spaces where text and image bleed into each other. Please welcome Luisa.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming, and thank you, Leo, for inviting me. I do not have my work published here, but it's still an honor. So I'm gonna open up with a poem that I think it's quite funny explanation of my relationship between the English and Spanish, and the dynamic between both languages. Madre Malinche. Mi español es como un hijo consentido, que un día se volvió hijo ajeno. Pasé de amarlo fervientemente y alimentarlo con mazapanes y piloncillo, a dejarlo solo, olvidado y aislado. En su lugar, empecé a alimentar el inglés, llenándolo de amor. Pasé días y noches preparando pots and pots of tea, llenándolo de crumpets and scones, queriendo hacerlo mío. But the bastard did not love me back. Thank you. This following one is a bit on a more serious tone. It's about, I guess, the relationship between femininity and masculinity, but also between being from a colonized country and living in an ex-empire. Genesis 22nd, retold. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Let us return to the mother tongue, al verbo de la tierra madre. On top of the mountain, there is a goat bleating. Isaac does not bleed. Abraham does not cry. God has spared Isaac's life. The scene disappears, changes. We find ourselves in front of a cenote, the boy looking in, con su hocico bien abierto, its fangs waiting, salivating. The son, Isaac, has become a daughter. El hijo se vuelve hija, derramando la O como miel hasta que se convierte en A. Detrás de ella, dos hombres viejos, with long beards, throw jewels into the water. She is now the goat, el chivo expiatorio, el cuerpo que carga el pecado. Our warrior is not pushed. She jumps into the void full of dignity, whispering to herself, "It's because we bleed." She falls so fast that her dress leaves a wild trail behind, an illusion, una ilusión. On the other side of the world, Isaac is spared by God, his name immortalized by the Bible. On this side of the world, she falls into the cenote, enfolded by her white robes, she dies. Un alma anónima, hundida en la oscuridad, la primera de muchas más. Thousands of years later, we find ourselves in the middle of a half-broken empire, looking out whilst looking in. using words and language to put the pieces back together. Now we understand that her whisper was a cry for revolution. It's because we bleed. Nos acusaron de cometer sacrificios paganos, justificando el sacrilegio de nuestra tierra. Thousands of years later, we find ourselves waging a linguistic war within this page. Como serpiente emplumada, el lenguaje se desdobla alrededor de la pluma, se vuelve nuestro. Thousands of years later, we resurrect her. In the beginning was a womb, and the womb was with God, and the womb was God. Now I'm going to read 2 new poems that I never read out loud. So, Doors. Most of the time, it feels so far away. But this city is porous and often it creeps back in. La vida aquella, full of emotions, sounds, and flavors. People from back then and there ring my doorbell. Some days I pretend not to hear them. Other days I open the door just to slam it in their faces. On days like today, I knock back, causing confusion. It depends on who's at the door. It never is the one I yearn. You, the mother who gifted me the dream of childhood, water ankle deep, swimming in the fountain. Tú, tejedora de vida, alistando la infancia que fue mía. The ones at the door are the stubborn kind. They keep telling me, you are within me and within reach. You never left. And yet, you never knock, do you? Tú, tejedora de vida, arrobándome para enfrentar los huracanes. Some days, everything is poetry. Other days, nothing rhymes and poetry is nothing. On days like today, my tongue moves and vibrates with a rhythm of its own. Rooted inside me, between the folds of my lungs and the hard shell of my thorax, there is an insane conviction que con tus manos tejedoras me sembraste, that I know the path and that the destination, pulsing and ravishing, exists beyond the folds of this earth, its soil and rivers, beyond the folds of my skin, its muscles and bones. In heaven, you tell me, there are no doors we can knock. And I'm going to finish with a poem that is fully in Spanish, so apology to those that do not speak Spanish. But you are in the Instituto Cervantes, so. Ámbar. Resina de árbol fosilizada. Hielo de tiempo. Dentro del ámbar, nada cambia, nada se mueve. Cuando mi vida se acelera y la falta de pausas me pesan, me gusta cerrar los ojos e imaginar que vivo dentro de tu piel de ámbar. Un lugar cálido, naranja y con luz que cae como miel de panal. La idea me nutre. En la casa de Cancún tenemos unos ventanales naranjas que me recuerdan esa piel oscura pero brillante. Cuando el sol les pega, las paredes se transforman y los azulejos se vuelven dorados. De niña, me encantaba sentarme ahí, envuelta en la luz del ámbar, en la piel de miel. A veces persigo tus recuerdos, los persigo queriendo que se vuelvan míos. Me sumerjo en la profundidad de tu mar y encuentro tus memorias, entre cantos que susurran lo que fue y ya no es. Mañanas comiendo tortillas, el rugido del mar fumigante, la humedad, el calor de la madera oscura y la piedra porosa bajo mis pies. Mi infancia, congelada en ese hogar, el único lugar que realmente consideré mi hogar. Dentro del ámbar, la agorafobia no es una fobia, es una bendición. Afuera existe el tiempo, los aviones que se van. Afuera hay semáforos que cambian de rojo a verde. Afuera no soy capaz de correr lo suficientemente rápido para alcanzar tus recuerdos. Afuera hay muertos que enterrar y cuerpos que exhumar. Afuera tú me pariste y yo te enterré. Afuera, esa memoria de la miel de panal no es mía, es tuya. Pero dentro del ámbar, la muerte no existe. Tus memorias son mías y todas las mieles son de panal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isa. This poem, people reading. So I'm going to read the translation that I've done of Raúl Cisneros, a poet from Peru. and it's called The Moon Farm. The Moon Farm. The moon farm is far away. We walked at harried steps for many hours and found a colorful mountain with aromatic herbs, beautiful and sweet. We dug the fertile land where tubers of many colors slept. My hands felt soft, long, round and earthy. Another field of quinoa seeds, the rainbow-colored star seeds. My moon reaps with her galactic hands. Each grain is purified like gold nuggets. The unspoiled depths of the Andes will sustain us. We will eat stellar seeds. Forest filters will purify our air. We will love each other for the Andean infinity. And I'm going to finish with a few sonnets from my collection from Southernmost Sonnets. And this is a book that looks at South America from many angles, from the historical, from the geographical, from the personal. My story and a much larger story. There are 100 sonnets, and I will read just a few. The first one is one of the historical sonnets, and in a way, because we started with the Andean, we will move to the historical. Sonnet 16. Don Juan Díaz de Solís, looking for a new passage to the Far East, entered the Rio de la Plata basin. He named it Mar Dulce, sweet sea. But the savages got his sailors first, then him, and all were eaten. It all occurred in the first month of February 1516. A town called Santa Maria de los Buenos Aires was founded a few years later, a low site of mean aspect, decrepit, muddy, full of spirits, bad fairies. Then, 3 years later, the Spaniards fell again. Not much to be done. The place lay abandoned as native charruas closed in and burnt it all down, those little flimsy houses. All the locals murdered. A place forever cursed. They must have thought, as they left behind the tenuous city, a flaming spot. The next sonnet is dedicated to the Madres de Plaza de Mayo. 2 days ago, it was commemorated the 50th anniversary of the coup, the military coup in Argentina, where at least 30,000 people were disappeared. Sonnet 21. My aunt fears all subtropical winters, sharpened shears, big stray dogs when they bark, the unbearable violence of police sirens as they howl and howl. She always fears her snoopy neighbors, rickety buses, electric fences. My aunt fears financial decrees, military tombstones, the vivid memory of herself as a young student bearing books by Che Guevara, Marx, Trotsky, Lenin, Eva Perón, deep in her parents' courtyard garden, secretly kneeling like a blindfolded hostage to be shot. She recalls it all as it had happened to someone else, a doppelganger, herself a two-faced impostor. She fears unexpected calls, big mustaches, dictators in leather boots, big daggers. She fears being sunk by her fears, like a young, soft body, still alive and breathing. but drugged, thrown into the sea. Sonnet 44. Like the dusty archive of America's first planetarium, with its small sundials, rare telescopes, and pocket globes, or the global seed vault, a giant underground aquarium buried deep on an island between Norway and the North Pole. Like the gargantuan Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City, with its Aztec calendar, the stone of the sun, and the tombstones and jades of Pacal. Like the Gold Museum of Bogota City, packed with necklaces, bracelets, and trunks, room after room. So, my own museum grows every day in this English diaspora, a collection of objects acquired, who knows, to tell my story. Letters from Argentina, stones, books, photos from a lost camera, and all the things you gave me as presents. A gay love's allegory. Sometimes I wander through those corridors, long and intricate, looking at my past, my two countries, a diorama for an immigrant. Sonnet 45. I read in the Butterflies and Moths in Britain field guide that many of these countries' species are in fact nomadic, that they move from place to place over the countryside in search of nourishment, always unwearing, pragmatic. A primeval instinct compels them every year to gather, responding to the sudden seasons changes. They follow the sun's path, the way the north winds blow. Some scatter over oceans and mountains. Others look down on seas below. An impulse urges them to move. They perpetually pursue the better place to feed, drink, and mate till they're dying. Their inner compass always at work to chart their routes, crossing to Spain, the southern hemisphere. Oh, migrating British butterflies, clouded yellows, swallowtails, painted ladies, red admirals, the milkweed, the large whites, the fritillaries. Sonnet 75. At lunch, we talked at length about family, how everything seems to be disintegrating, how being migrants made their forebears wary of solitude, abandonment, how by recreating a nation at home, they kept their memories portable, how they began a new life in distant Buenos Aires. We talked about our life in England, a plausible family of two men facing each other for years. At some point, we thought of distant relatives, cousins, aunts, great uncles, some now dead. The tree binding us to a place, the long genitive branches of our own blood, the severed threads. It all began with a dream I tried to decipher of a large house, and inside, a fire, no survivors. And I'm going to finish with two sonnets. Sonnet 99. On the writing desk, a picture of my late mother tasting mushy food before feeding her baby, me. Wearing a little blue hat and a bib, looking eagerly at her. We are in Parque Pereira, an idyllic park of oak trees. Mother is in a bright red dress, bathed in sunshine. This is the only photo framed of her, and on its yellow back, some scribbles for her as I grew up. a few lines when I was ill or missed her. Mamá, te extraño hasta el cielo. The fast eroding picture of a simple autumn day outside the city. What was it that she was thinking as she was about to feed me? And what did father say before taking the photograph? Standing there, just looking. And what happened next? Did she sing to me as I dozed off reluctantly? And what did she see as my eyes closed? I'm going to finish with the last sonnet from the collection, Sonnet 100. In the recurring dream, I go back to Buenos Aires. Father, still well, waits in his impeccable yellow car. At some point, we talk about the hot weather. He carries my presents-filled bags. It is as if I see it all from afar. The journey from the brand new airport is too ominous. The radio presenter talks fast, or is it me the one talking? Something is not right. The Argentinian sun, monotonous. I should know this place well, but somehow I'm straying. At some point, long dead mother makes an appearance. She has brought me her salami sandwiches for the road and sweetly asks me how my life is going. No coherence in this rolling dream, but a lingering taste of something odd. When I finally wake up, I'm always at a loss. Where am I? I am back home, of course. Still outside a stranger's sky. Thank you very much. So I think we're going to open the conversation to the audience. And if there is anyone, with a question, I think we have one here. Any questions?
In English or Spanish? Tengo que practicar mi español siempre, entonces prefiero hablar español, aunque hago muchos errores. Gracias por esos muy buenos poemas y todo. Yo quiero preguntarles por qué ustedes decidieron mudarse aquí a Londres y vivir acá.
I was actually in the U.S. And got tired of dealing with the visas there. And had a Spanish passport as well as Dominican, so I came here. It was easy.
So the question is, why did I come here? Okay. I was born in Brazil, and then when I was 8 years old, I moved to Italy, and then from there I moved here as an adult. Well, I don't really do well with small places, and I knew that I needed a metropolis, so that's why I came. And yeah, I was right. Yeah, I think that's them.
It's quite a loaded question. I mean, on a practical level, I came here for university. I actually lived in Wales, and then I moved to Brighton, and I ended up in London. I prefer the second part of the question because it's why you stayed. I think I found a sort of freedom to be more myself in the UK. I think Mexico is a wonderful country, and I have lots of love for it, but I still feel that it's quite religious and can be quite backwards in its the way that it treats women, but also queer people. So I think in that sense, I find more comfort living here and being a woman and thriving as a woman writer as well. I think there's a lot of respect in that. Yeah, that's my answer.
And in my case, um, it's really interesting because I think one of the reasons I was trying to come out, and it was quite difficult in Argentina back then, and especially to my family. So I felt completely trapped. And I always had a fascination with the UK, with England, mostly through poetry and literature. I was obsessed with the Romantics and English literature, and I always wanted to live in England. So I came to study literature, and I met my my partner, and yeah, it's a long time. Actually, 30 years this year. So really, really long time. But many reasons, I guess. And yeah, those are some. Yeah.
Gracias por las respuestas.
This is also.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you. I was wondering, I work in media, so have you found a good space to like connect with audiences? How do you do it? Spanish, English, both. And the other is related, but regarding press or print. Like what are the challenges, or how would you navigate the being published here? Thank you.
In my case, my in my case, remember when a long time ago, I would go to only Spanish places, Spanish speaking sort of gatherings, and I would read my poetry in Spanish. I write both in Spanish and English. And I was part of a collective of writers who were all from Latin America, and we were writing in Spanish and reading in Spanish to a Spanish audience. And then I began writing in English, so it became more mixed somehow, and the kind of audiences grew, and they were completely different. And the writing changed as well, because I felt I was writing not only for that smallish community, but for friends back in South America. And when I write in English, I feel more, I write to maybe colleagues or friends here, or a wider audience here in the UK. So it's really interesting, that kind of the thing with audiences and languages. And in terms of publishing, for me it was I published 2 collections in Argentina, poetry collections, and then when I moved to the UK, it took me quite a while to get published in England. But yeah, I managed to have both publishers in Argentina and in the UK. But it's a tricky thing. Sometimes it's not as balanced. Sometimes I lean towards the English writing more than Spanish, or the other way around, or translation. I do a lot of translation, so I move between the two. But yeah, it's hard to get published in the UK. But I guess if you work hard, and you eventually you get there, I guess. Yeah.
I guess my experience with writing and publishing, I'm saying publishing because I didn't really publish until 2 years ago when I joined this Latinx writing group, and we self-published this little booklet. Is that I'm a very much digital native, so I always use Instagram as a form of publishing for myself. I started actually writing poetry during the pandemic, during lockdown. I got bored and I started posting poems on my Instagram stories. So I also see publishing as a more hybrid form for myself, where some of it can exist on digital media and be equally valuable as something printed. But now I am starting to move more towards print because I like the look and feel, but also I think with those platforms becoming so politicized and controversial, I think it's important for writing to exist in a physical form. I will say, like, I didn't really find my group of people until I moved to London, which is one of the reasons why I stayed in London, because while I was in Brighton and Cardiff, they're very small places, so there isn't a big Latin American diaspora. And when I moved here is when I started finding these opportunities, and I was able to meet other writers. And through that, I've been able to, I guess, have smaller initiatives where we can self-publish and have events like this.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I think it's about finding your community, your people. And yeah, I was very grateful with the Nuevo Soul project, and that's how we met, me and Leo. And yeah, because for me especially, it was really hard to reconnect to my Brazilian roots. And so it's really nice as a creative person, and even just as a person, to reconnect to that part of my being. For making space, I don't know. I feel that you have to, have the strength to say, this is my seat. I guess it's like when you sit in the tube, and there are the guys, that they are like this, and you're like, no, excuse me, this is my. So yeah, I think we need to be, uh, strong and have no shame in saying this is my place. Yeah.
I would say, I mean, London never really felt English. So I guess the biggest challenge is that Latin America is such a large place, but the diasporas here are relatively small. So it all becomes more like a pan-Latin American thing. So you sort of collect it yourself. Like I started organizing Empanada Poetry Salon as a way of collecting this sort of multilingual poets for diasporas, not only Latin America. And in terms of publishing, honestly, I find that in Britain it's harder to publish multilingual poetry. Um, but in England, once you go to Ireland or you go to Wales or Scotland, they're much more open to other languages. I don't know, maybe because English is from England, they don't like to publish things that are so mixed. But yeah, I think you can see more and more of that changing. I mean, like I think this is the first year that they recognize Latin America as ethnicity in the UK, because till now it's just boxing others. So I mean, maybe because it was not part of their empire, but I think we're little by little trying to push in that direction.
Hola, pues ¿alguna vez os pasa que al vivir, en vuestro caso, escribir y trabajar, bueno, en muchos idiomas, por lo menos 2 o 3 en tu caso, hay una parte de tu personalidad que, por cierta parte, como cambia o sale más en un idioma che in otro? E se vuoi te lo dico in italiano, se la tua
No, non ho capito. So essentially, I have to be honest, I don't think I'm that smart. So I need to concentrate on one language. And so I'm okay to write mostly in English. Very rarely I write in Italian. Sometimes I like to put here and there a sentence in Portuguese. But yes, unfortunately, my brain, yeah, I'll never be a translator. That's, yeah. So, I guess there is something about the rhythm of English language that goes well with, I guess, the rhythm that I have inside of me. And so that's how I best express myself. Yeah.
In my case, I write very differently in Spanish and English. When I write in Spanish, I focus much more in sort of music and maybe rhythm and how it sounds, more than what I'm trying to say. In English, I'm more interested in form, in constraints, in the sonnet form, in having all these rules, because that's how, when you learn a language, you have to learn it by learning the rules of the language. And Spanish, sort of, you acquire it. Well, in my case, I acquired it as a child, as a baby. So I'm fascinated by form, by all those rules, by writing odes or sonnets or I don't know, different types of poetry, and it tends to be more narrative somehow. I don't know why. That might change eventually, but I feel that you change. Language changes you, I think, and even words as well. And I guess we have more words in Spanish than English, and I notice that because I do translation a lot of. I translate from Latin America to English, and I notice that some poets are so focused on music and how it sounds that when I'm trying to translate it into English, it's almost like falls apart. There's almost like nothing I can translate. There's not, it's not an idea. It's actually sounds and music, and it's really difficult to translate. And sometimes that's what happens, in other aspects when I move from Spanish into English. That what I'm trying to say sort of collapses. I was interested in maybe a few words or maybe an idea, and that kind of in English is completely untranslatable, or it's mistranslated into something completely different. So language really transforms you, changes you. Yeah.
I think for me, I always wrote in English as well as Spanish, even though I obviously grew up in Mexico speaking Spanish. My mom was a translator and she spoke English quite fluently, so I kind of grew up in a house where she would like speak Spanish and English. So I think it's almost like my natural language is to be in both languages, and I find it quite easy to just navigate the two. However, living here now, it feels like the Spanish gives me a sort of allowance to be more emotional, because the way I see it now is Spanish brings me back to my home, to my memory, to my emotional self, and the English is the more practical language. So when I add Spanish, you may have noticed like the majority of the words in the Spanglish poems are in English, but then when there is a sentence in Spanish, that's when it brings back to the emotion. And it's like a way in which I try to weave in the emphasis of what I'm feeling rather than what I'm saying. So I guess it comes out really naturally to me, but I guess that is just the nature of living between two languages, because I still speak Spanish on a almost daily basis. I message my friends in Spanish, I message my family in Spanish. So it is like, it is just the way that migrants exist, I guess, between two languages.
Yeah, I would say Spanish is an interesting language because very few languages in English have something like Spanglish. So for me, I lived a lot of my life in Spanglish in California. My family's from Puerto Rico as well. And in the Dominican Republic, certain people just speak in sort of mix of English and Spanish. So you don't really go to one to the other. From a poetry perspective, it's a very different concept, because what is beautiful about English is you have very conciseness. So if you're writing from an image perspective, it's a lot easier to spin an image with less words versus where you're dragged down by determinants and like objects and more formal sentence structures that make it harder to have this very long rung of sentences that you can have in a point with English. But yeah, I think the other beauty of English is that you can mix all sorts of languages within it. Given that if you look at the Spanish official dictionary, it's 2 tomes, Diccionario Real Academia Española. But if you look at the English dictionary, there is no rules. The Oxford English Dictionary is 28 or 30 tomes. Why? Because they bastardize any words from any other language. It's included and never taken away. So it's versus the Spanish, the Chilean and the Spanish Academy were a lot more formal. So in English, you can get away with whatever. In Spanish, you use a word in English and you will get a lot of pushback and stuff. So
I think one more. Yeah, maybe one. Yeah.
Gracias, muchas gracias. Yo quería preguntar por el nombre Wasafiri, ¿qué significa y por qué elegisteis ese nombre?
No soy el. Gracias. No soy un editor, digamos, invitado. La revista invita a editores, distintos editores. Karina y yo fuimos editores invitados a la revista. La revista lleva como más de 30 años. No sé, hay alguien aquí de Wasafiri. No sé qué. ¿Qué dice? Do you know why the name?
And the name, it means traveler.
Traveler in Swahili. Yeah.
Interesante.
No, no sabía. I didn't know it.
Similar to safari.
One more.
Hi, thank you. My question is in the same vein as the previous one about the languages. So I'm a poet as well, and I write in English. I hardly ever write in Spanish, and part of me feels guilty about it because it's my native language. I'm from Mexico City as well, and I was wondering, how would you reconcile the languages that you have, and in a way, how would you feel about writing in one language without the other? I guess some of your poems, for example, I've heard today, you kind of mix both sometimes English with Spanish, which I guess is a way of bringing your own language into English. But in a way, I wanted to know how you feel in the level of intimacy that you bring into the language, because you spoke about the different techniques that you use for each language. You use the more musicality for Spanish and more structural for English, for example. But in terms of intimacy, which one do you feel connect more in an intimate level? Because for me, for example, when I write in English, I feel more free. I feel freer to talk about things that I wouldn't speak with people in Spanish. It's as if I speak in Spanish, they will find out, my family will find out how I feel. So I put everything in English, so no one will know what I'm going through. So it's sort of like, maybe that's the psychological thing that goes with me, but I don't know if that's also the case for you. I don't know what you feel like.
Yeah. In my case, there is that sense of anonymity somehow. And my sister is a novelist. She's in Buenos Aires and she publishes in Buenos Aires, and it's really interesting. She was in London, and we did an event recently, and she read from her novel. And sometimes we write about similar things, but from different perspectives. We write, I've got sonnets about my mum, for instance, and she wrote about my mother in a slightly different way. And so writing in English, first of all, I write here, so there's that geographical distance, that distance that, miles away is Argentina. Also, I left it 30 years ago, so there's that kind of, the time as well. And language is a completely different language. So I'm completely removed. In a way, I can see it from afar, and I'm more almost like sort of precise. I can really, and my sister does a completely different thing. She writes it in a completely different way, and we find it really interesting. Is we write about the same person, so it's, my mother, but it's so different the way that we write. So yeah, you're right. There is that kind of distance and anonymity. And in fact, if I write something in English and then I do some stuff in Spanish, I focus on, even if I want to write about the same thing, I focus on different aspects of that. As I said, in Spanish, it's more about kind of how it sounds. That that gives me a lot of pleasure. Is that kind of how it sounds, and the rhythm and the music and how they look on the page. English, takes me to a completely different place. And also because I've been living here for 30 years, I guess I have more memories now in the UK. I live more in the UK than in Argentina. So many more memories and conversations in English, even dreams in English, that I can write now. So when I write in Spanish, it feels I go back to maybe a time when I was living in Argentina, maybe 30 years ago, maybe a person I was then, and the people I met then. So it gets quite sort of, it's a really interesting thing, language. Yeah, fascinating.
But it's an interesting thing. I mean, I guess, as Leo says, where you made the memory will bring an emotion in one language or another. And also who your audience is and what you can get away with. So, for example, if you write in poetry in Spanish, in the micro, it cannot be political because it's just not what people read. Versus in English, you can get away with things that you would not be able to get away with Spanish. Like I wrote a poem about Trujillo having a love affair with Rubirosa and cooking him breakfast. So that in Dominican Republic would have been, what are you doing? But in English, you can get away with it and then use a lot of Spanish in it and then still keep the the essence of the characters. So,
Mm. For me, it's more about I'm not loyal to Italian language because I guess my first language was Portuguese. But then when we moved to Italy, my parents were so terrified that I wouldn't settle well that they made me stop speak Portuguese. So then Italian became my my first language. And so for me, it took me a really long time to understand that uh, Italian was literally the colonizer language for me. So for me, English is literally freedom. And so yeah.
I wanted to ask you if you can share with us briefly, when was your first contact with poetry? What led you to write poetry?
Sorry, I start again. My aunt would read Borges to us when we were really, really young. Sonnets, actually. Sonetos. And I didn't know what. I just loved how they sounded. You know, these musical sonnets and really interesting poems. And then I began writing dedications in books when I was really, really young to family members. So they would say, "Oh, the poet, the poeta, Leo, el poeta," kind of joking. But I really enjoy writing those things, almost like songs or poems. But I was really, really young. I was probably 5 or 6, and I remember people expecting the poems. So when I gave them books, it was just little scribbles, and that gave me a lot of, it was lovely, just playing around with words and sounds and sort of making people happy and or engage somehow with poetry. Yeah.
I don't actually remember because I think I grew up with my mom who was a writer. So in a way, poetry has always been around me. The way I relate to it though is because I remember when I was in school, in primary school, they made us read like Sor Juana, Inez, and it was very like loaded language, and I didn't like it back then because it felt quite structured and limiting. And I think the way I approach poetry is almost like music because I listen to music a lot. I love music. That's I'm always listening to it. So I guess in a way, when I started approaching poetry as a way in which I could express myself and write, I was approaching it more like writing lyrics rather than thinking of it in a poet like traditional sense. So yeah, I would guess like my first encounter with it has really been through music because I do think musicians, that's what they're doing at the end of the day. They are writing poems and then mixing them up with the sounds. But yeah.
Well, in Italy, when I was younger, the first contact was with Gianni Rodari. And he's just a children poet, and I really enjoyed that. But when I started writing, it was in high school, and every week, Italian literature class, you would have to study a famous writer, and so I would try to write a poem in the same style of the poet that we were studying that week. Um, but then it became like a diary where I would just tell what was happening in my life. So I guess, yeah, that was.
And for me, I ended up 2 years in Spain in middle school, and there the way they study literature is it serves from different writers and usually very old stuff. Like I was saying, I mean, there was some stuff from Generation of 27 that was quite interesting, but then people didn't write; it was not a thing. Then I went to the U.S. where you have creative writing and stuff. So ended up in poetry because I couldn't take the class for short stories. Ended up writing poetry, and then I realized that you could tell stories with poetry. And if you don't have a big attention span, you have ADHD, poetry is a lot better. So easier to read, easier to write.
Thank you very much, everyone, for a wonderful evening. Thank you, José, Patrizia, and Luisa, for your beautiful poetry, and thank you all for being here. I would encourage you to buy the Wasafiri issue, Presencia and Resistencia. As I said, it's a historical issue, and I think you're in for a treat. It really is a wonderful magazine. So thank you all for being here, and I'll see you all upstairs. Thank you. Thanks.